Today, June and I have travelled to Falkland, a fantastic Outlander filming location. Many Outlander fans, of course, will recognise this scene. This, of course, is where Ghost Jamie was seen by Frank one dark evening, looking up to Claire in her bedroom window in Mrs. Baird's bed and breakfast. That scene, and many others, were shot in Falkland. First of all, let's have a look at some of the basics about Falkland, such as where exactly is it? Oh, here it is, in the county of Fife, over on the east coast of Scotland. Now, people in Fife like to call the county of Fife the Kingdom of Fife, so we'll say the Kingdom of Fife. It lies pretty much in the centre of Fife, and it's only about 40 miles north of Edinburgh. Falkland was first established in the 12th century, originally as a castle for the Earls of Fife, and a small hamlet grew up around the castle. Falkland was chosen to portray Inverness as it would have been in 1946 in Outlander Season 1 because many of its buildings reflect what Inverness would have looked like then, Inverness of course having been much modernised and changed since those days. Some of the most memorable Outlander scenes that have been shot in Falkland have been shot in and around the main square. So let's have a look at what's there. The square is surrounded by attractive old buildings in that lovely Scottish style that you often see in the east coast of the country. And also there is the fine old parish church. But mainly the square is dominated by the large fountain in the middle, which is called the Bruce Fountain, so called after the Tyndall Bruce family who donated it to the town. And it features these lovely lion's heads. Also on the fountain are these amazing crests. They're the crests of the Falkland town and also the crests of the Tyndall Bruce family. But unfortunately the Outlander director didn't like these, so they were blacked out and don't appear in filming. Some of the most loved scenes in Outlander Season 1 revolve around Mrs. Baird's B&B, where Claire and Frank are spending their second honeymoon. And the house that's used to portray this is in Falkland. It's actually the Covenanter Hotel, and the Outlander team didn't have to do an awful lot to it prior to the filming, apart from adding some yellow paint to the windows and front pillars and changing the signs. Covenanters, just on a historical note, Covenanters were Presbyterians who fought to maintain the independence of the Church of Scotland in the 1600s, and many of them unfortunately died for it. Next, let's have a look at Campbell's Coffee House. Now, as you can see, this building is actually called Campbell's Coffee House and Eatery, but in actual fact, prior to filming, it was a pharmacy, and a lot of work was done to change the look of it for the filming, including putting up lots of wooden crates of fruit and veg piled up against the windows outside. After the filming, it was decided to keep it as a coffee house, and it's been completely redone, and in fact you can go there now and have tea, coffee and meals, as June and I did. Now we'll go over to the other side of the square, to Farrell's hardware shop. Or, as you can see, its real name is Fair Earth, a gift shop. Extensive works were done here to create the famous hardware shop where Claire would look in the window and dream about owning the lovely blue vase that she saw there. And of course, she made that famous statement about it, didn't she? Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd bought that vase and made a home for it. Indeed. As well as the specific buildings used in the filming of Outlander, there have also been a lot of street scenes and backgrounds, some of which you may recognise, that have been shot here in Falkland. There are a number of small streets around the square with lots of lovely old buildings. Falkland was Scotland's very first conservation village, and when you see these streets and buildings you can understand why. Now this stone carving intrigued me, so if you don't mind I'll just give you a little historical footnote here. Scots men and women of a certain age, i.e. my age, may well remember that in Scotland we had a bank called the British Linen Bank a long time ago. It was founded in 1746 in Edinburgh, and its head office then was in Tweedale Court, which some of you may remember was used fairly recently for filming Outlander. It's a very historic close in Royal Mails. So the British Linen Bank was taken over by the Bank of Scotland in 1969. There you go, a little bit of history. The Bruce Inn has quite a number of interesting old signs. I quite like the one that says "Contentment is great riches," which I think is pretty good advice for us all. I think these older signs and this one here are generally to praising King James VI of Scotland. And as you can see, you'll see if you happen to be walking around Falkland, many old dates carved into houses. I was quite intrigued by these carvings. I think they are of falcons, as there was an old falconry centre nearby. And this definitely intrigued me. This house it has a thatched roof. It looks like it's recently been rethatched, which is quite unusual in Scotland, as we have a quite damp climate, as you may well know. Again, lots of old dates carved in over the doors of these towns. This street here, I think, down towards the bottom, has been used for quite a lot of Outlander filming. Leads to the square. And I just love this little cobbled, we would probably call it a wind, a little street. As you can see, the locals here get the chance to see and photograph the Outlander stars in action. And last, but by no means least, if you happen to be here, I just love this house. But I do have to say, this is not where June and I live. Now, whilst it was never used for Outlander filming, you cannot come to Falkland without visiting Falkland Palace. I mentioned earlier, a castle originally stood on this site, built in the 12th century by the Earls of Fife. But in the 1500s, King James IV and King James V of Scotland turned it into this wonderful Renaissance-style palace. It was surrounded really then by large forests and open land, and they used it as a country retreat where they would go hunting. And also it has probably one of the oldest tennis courts in Britain, and Mary Queen of Scots played tennis there. It is a fantastic historic property run today by the National Trust for Scotland, and very worthwhile a visit if you happen to be in Falkland. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little glimpse of Falkland, one of the great Outlander filming locations in Scotland. For those of you who've been here before, hopefully this will have brought back some fond memories for you. For those of you who haven't been here yet, then I urge you to try and come if at all possible. Just to walk these streets, to stand outside the shop and coffee house, to stand next to the fountain, will be a tremendous experience for you. And as I always say, come and walk in the footsteps of history. So, thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a like and perhaps share it with your friends. And I wish you all a very fond farewell from Scotland.